Greetings. Well, recently I had a person come to me and say, Bill, if there was only one thing that I have ever learned from you, it's to make sure when you get started on something that you have a plan. I suspect there's probably a few more things you could learn from me, but I guess that's one. This statement was in reference to very specific when you're purchasing property here on the island and you're going to try to develop it, that you're really going to need a plan. Puna is a rainforest and a jungle. And frequently I've seen people acquire property here and look at it and go, well, I guess I'm going to start to clear out some of this vegetation. That's a common one. I'm going to start planting some stuff in here. I don't know when and where I'm going to build, but I really would like to get trees started and things. Well, it's not the best plan. My suggestion when acquiring property in this area is the first thing you need to do is to just stop, sit down in a chair on the property, and try to figure out what is what. Yeah, blank your mind. Clear your desires. They're the root of all your suffering anyway. And just kind of sit there and try to figure out what direction does the brightest sunlight come from? In other words, where is south? Where does the sun rise? Important. Where does the sun set? How about the typical airflow pattern? We have what we call a trade wind here in Hawaii on this side of the island. It's a factor, very important factor actually, in our weather. And you need to know that flows mostly from the northeast. It's east-northeast is the majority of the airflow that creates the trade wind. So on and so forth. Where are your views? How does water move across the land? Wow, and this is an island where you can easily get upwards towards 100 to 200 inches of rain per year. How the water moves across the land is critical, okay? And so when you're looking at that brand new piece of property and you're thinking, whoa, I got to get out there and put 25 banana plants in. Well, where are you putting them to begin with? Are you putting them right where you actually want the airflow to come in? Do you know where the airflow comes in? Are you putting them where the sunrise comes up, which will warm up your building first thing in the morning on a cold winter? It was 51 degrees here this morning when I got up and 63 degrees inside my house. It was pretty chilly. And man, I'll tell you, I was waiting for that sun to come up. When the sun does come up, on a clear winter morning, and if you have the eastern light exposure coming directly into your building, on the end of the building that you'll probably be in the morning, okay, that's important too. I'm on the end of the building where the sun pours in first thing. Now, in the evenings, I sleep on the end of the building where the sun goes down, and I have a big patio door over there. In the wintertime, I leave that room all sealed up towards sundown to make sure I get the last few hours of daylight to heat the room up before I go in there to go to sleep. I'm not using a furnace, okay? Using the ambient conditions here on the island. Most of us are planning to be, I'm going off grid. I hear that one a lot. I want to go off grid. And so that means you're going to run solar equipment, most likely. That's, maybe you got a wind generator, possible. But mostly here we have solar. And so, well, where's the sun coming from? See, if you start planting, walls of bamboo in places because you want to have privacy, I got to screen this place off so I can hide in the middle of my jungle. If you begin putting in, 30-foot tall bamboo directly in the path to where your solar collectors are going to have to go, Where's the trade-off here? Is the bamboo going to go, or are you going to not use the solar collectors? There's a whole lot to think about. And so, first thing first, when looking at a site here, ordinarily the site needs prep. You usually cannot just walk right into one of these places and go, hey, I'll put the house right here. That's done. No, ordinarily you're going to have to bring in a dozer. At the very minimum, you're going to have to use a big bobcat to at least shove some stuff around. But most people on this side of the island in Puna, which Puna is where it's hot right now, if you're looking for real estate, man, it's flying out of here like popcorn. Yeah, this is the place. Most of it's lava here. Yeah, it's mostly lava underfoot. I have soil, and there are places that are soil. Now, when there is soil, sometimes the amount of work needed isn't as great. Most of my property did not need groundwork in order to be useful for crops. It needed groundwork to be useful so I could drive my cars in and out, have a place to park, put a house in a location, and above all, I don't know who the man was who was on the dozer here. Okay, he was a subcontractor. Jim Taring hired him. This guy Jim uses. Well, I tell you, I'd shake that man's hand because I've been living here for years now, and I've seen some really horrendous rainfalls come down, and the way he graded for this house pad, all the water moves away from this building, and I've seen water coming down the hill behind here, just right back behind where I am sitting, to such an extent that if it hadn't been graded right, it'd be coming right through the carport. Yeah, so the grading and the control of the water that's moving over the site, man, I tell you, that is like number one. To begin with, you're not going to easily get a house put in, even a cabin, if you haven't done some leveling of the area. Occasionally you'll find places that are relatively level. We put in Ellen's she shed back here without doing any leveling, but there's at least a 20-inch grade difference from front to back. It's on posts and piers, so we accommodate for that because, we let the front stick up and the back goes down. But it was level enough that you can walk around the building and without having to do any special work. Now, we did take extra bags of cement, and we cast 12-inch square stepping stones to make a trail going in here right up to the building door, so we have a concrete path, so there's a nice level step area, and it goes up the slope, with some steps. So we've done a little bit there, but didn't have to do much. Most of you are actually going to have to do a whole lot more than that. See, if you have soil, most of this soil drains really fast, and so there isn't a whole lot of concern about standing water. On the other hand, when you've got lava, depends. Some of the lava, lava is very porous, foamy, almost like hydroponic rock wool, It's not a big problem as far as the way water moves through it. On the other hand, some of the lava is much more dense. The Pahoehoe, sometimes water won't go down through anywhere except in the cracks because it's got a hard finish over it. So, if you go out and you put your house down on top of Pahoehoe, and if you didn't do anything about the Pahoehoe that was underneath, and you only threw maybe cinder over the top to kind of level things off a little bit, chances are you're going to have water accumulation around the building. So I can kind of go on like this for a long time, but the first thing that needs to be done when you're making a plan on that property is you need to figure out what's the earthwork. Yeah, nothing comes ahead of the earthwork. That's Different sites are going to take different work. Different people have different mindsets about this. There are people who would never cut down a tree. There's guys like me who anything that got in his way, if I didn't want it there, I'm just going to wreck it and get it out, okay? Because I've planted millions of trees in my life. I see very little special about any particular tree. If I don't like one where it's at, I take it out and I put another one somewhere else. Yeah, I don't get like this despite the fact I love trees. The earthwork is essential. The earthwork will dictate almost everything. Where the air is coming in. What's your view line? What views do you have that maybe you want to block? We generally don't have to worry very much in Puna about wind speed, about the wind breaks. The wind speed here is not very high. It's just not one of the windier places on Hawaii. If you live in Waimea or if you're over in Kohala, there wind is an issue, and there your earthwork is also going to include how do I stop this wind from wailing through here, so your crops will grow and so the dog doesn't blow away and so on. Each and every site is going to have a unique set of problems that must be faced before you can actually sit down and put your pup tent up there and start drinking Kool-Aid. So that is the critical, is having a plan. Now, the plan will adjust. Very few of us are wise enough or clairvoyant enough to be able to see everything coming ahead of us in the future that we're going to run into. We had a plan here, okay, on this place. And that plan has modified over the years. And it modifies for one reason or another. Sometimes it wasn't very realistic. Oftentimes, conditions change. We started off here planting coffee. Coffee was being planted because of an argument with a tax assessor. He wanted to raise the rate that he was charging me at the residential rather than agricultural. And so I came in and I planted coffee all over the place. And I said, no, it's a farm. And that was fine. I got the farm rate on the property, but then that became irrelevant because over time, as this became the only property I owned in the country, I got a discount for that, the solitary residence discount here in Hawaii. And then, as I was over, I don't know, it's over 65 or something on this order, there's another discount for senior citizens. And so then I got that. Well, that was more than the ag discount. Now there's another one. So you go over 70, they've got a discount, the second senior citizen discount. Anyway, conditions keep changing. I don't need the coffee anymore. We got coffee bean borer got here. The coffee rust is here. Coffee has become a noose around my neck as far as I'm concerned. Ellen's cut down 100 trees at least. Here's a place where we had a plan. The plan's changed, things around it. I just got done building the shed back here. Kevin ended up doing most of it because 6 years ago I built another shed here and I was carrying plywood and steel roofing and stuff, no problem, 6 years ago. Yeah. The other day I started carrying wet T111 plywood over here and I knocked my back out so bad that it's still in small trauma. I'm still worrying about getting it back. Things change around you. My plan was, I keep building and nailing until I'm 92. Well, I'm afraid this will be my 72nd birthday, and there's parts of my back that just aren't going to let me tote around heavy plywood anymore. I'm going to have somebody else do it for me. Yeah. Things change. I had a plan, but I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago. Body's deteriorated to some extent. It gets older. Then eventually they dig a hole and kick your ass in, and and the worms eat you. Yeah, so having a plan and having the plan be negotiable. this one's definitely been negotiable. Between Ellen and I, what is the house going to look like? Because we built the house, Oh, that went through so many incarnations and so many changes. It never actually did get to a plan until the final, what we have here now. That became a plan. Otherwise, most of us, what we're looking at when we see a new piece of property, we bought a brand new lot here in Hawaii, and we want to get going with it, Well, most of us don't have a plan when we look at it. What we have is a vision. We have a dream, okay? Now, there's a big difference between a vision and a plan. A vision does tend to generate a plan. Vision comes first. First, you dream up what you think it is that you want, and then you figure out, how do we go about making that happen? Okay, it's the how do we go about, that's the planning part. The vision won't get you there, and if you start on the vision without having the plan implemented first, chances are you're going to end up having a lot of the vision turn into a nightmare. Because it was just an illusion. You didn't have the ducks in a row in the right order when you get going with that stuff, You put in a wall of 30-foot high bamboo, all across this stretch over here because they wanted to, wall things in from the world. And then you come to find out, that was not only the view of Mauna Kea, that was the airflow for the trade wind. That's right, that was where my sunrise comes in, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. Yeah. So we become familiar with our situation, and modify our vision, and then work it into a plan. Now, if you're still shopping for the property, you have a vision of some kind, but at that point, what you really need is a parameter list. Yeah. Put down everything on a piece of paper that you think you're going to have to be happy with this piece of property that you're shopping for. Descriptions of what kind of a road does it need to be on, does it have exposure for the public so you're easy to find, Do you need to be hidden way back in the woods someplace so no one will ever find you? These are all parameters. Does it need to have utility lines going by? Is that irrelevant because you're going totally off grid? Elevation. Elevation had to do with some of the last property purchase I was involved in with people. In both cases, the people were not liking the warm conditions that we have here in Hawaii down near the shore. In both cases, they were going up the mountain. Well, for some of us, a parameter would be no daytime temperature higher than 78 degrees. You can find that here. It's possible, So, nice, cool elevation would be a part of a parameter list. So, you get that list of parameters. Somewhere in there, I'm always telling you, you want the price on there. You know what you're going to have to try to spend to get the place. If you've done your field work, so you've looked at the area, you know roughly what things are selling for. So you have some idea of what scale is from top to bottom. You'll need that first. Research, then parameter, right? Yeah. Yeah, so, you put down on a parameter list what you intend to spend. Do not put it at the top of the list. Don't put it at the bottom either. Somewhere, in the upper third or so on the list. It's a good place to put price. But, this place here, I had a figure for price when we bought this. Yeah, I knew what I was going to spend. Well, I ended up spending twice that. I was very concerned because that meant I had to take a loan out to actually be able to acquire this piece of bare property. And at this point, none of it matters. It's 100% paid off. We don't owe anybody anything on this place at all. And so, what I spent on it, it was not actually a very important thing. There was certain limitations. I had so much cash, right? And with that cash, that was enough that they were willing to say, yeah, Bill, we'll give you a loan so you can do this thing, And, well, I had a job at the time, and so it all worked out. But it was a change right there in my parameters, right off. I thought I was going to pay probably less than half what this place cost me. I am so glad that I borrowed that money and that we did buy this place. Yeah, I couldn't replace it for anything worth less. That just wouldn't have happened. I'm very happy with the piece of property. The money was irrelevant. You're going to have a vision. You're going to take that, and through research, you're going to end up looking at what your possibilities are, which will generate your parameters, which is going to be your needs and your wants, your desires, the things that if you got to have cable internet, or fiber optic internet or whatever, it's all very important. What are your needs? Well, so once you get that stuff down and you find a place that does seem to, match the parameters pretty well. So this looks like this is probably the place. Well, then the next thing you have to do is you're going to take that vision and you're going to have to turn the vision into a plan. Yeah, the plan will give you the steps of how are you going to approach it. When that plan is there because some things have to be in the right order. I remember he's passed away now, but friend Scott, who actually inspired me to come here. He's part of the reason that I ended up looking around here myself. But I remember Scotty bought himself a place down there by Pahoa, and well, it had been a flower farm at one time. It had pretty much gone wild. There were all sorts of weed trees and avocados and all kinds of things growing amok through there. Well, Scott says, I'm going to do this permaculture style. I'm going to save everything that was here initially and remove and thin out the things that I don't want. I go, yeah, okay, fine, Scott. And I'm looking at him going, I know what's going to happen to you. And it did. And he went through and they cut down a lot of the big albizia trees and other junk wood that's not the weed trees that are not native, not particularly valuable, in some cases very undesirable. He removed all of that. He cut some of the brush that was underneath too. I come back 6 months later. The place was a nightmare of vines and undergrowth because he let the sunlight in. Everything that was under those trees exploded like it had been given fertilizer. Next thing you know, it was everywhere. He called me up and Billy, you got to help me. You got to help me. I go, what, Scott? You got vines everywhere? Yeah, the stuff grew like crazy. Yeah, I told you got to have a plan. You get in, you start cutting things down. You better have figured out exactly how you're going to deal with what the reaction is. With everything that you do, you're going to get an equal and opposite reaction. And in Puna, it's going to seem like you cut down one tree and you got 5,000 giant vines. So 1 equals 5,000. It gets that way. When it comes to the plan, everything in the right order. As I say, the groundwork comes first. So whatever leveling, whatever cindering, whatever materials you have to haul in to do planting, if that's hard rock, lava, really dense, the ripping that'll have to be done to it. This all varies depending on who the person is, all right? But let's just say, if you're coming here and you want to live in a more conventional way of living, where you have a house with a lawn around it and a dog and a cat in the yard and whatever, you got a lot of work to do on the land, more so than you ordinarily would have to do if you were doing this in Minnesota or someplace. The land itself is a lot of rock most of the time. And so, living on rock is a completely different situation. The order that things are done in when planning, again, is critical. You don't go in and start doing your planting just because you think you need to have the trees big enough. Chances are you're going to have them in the wrong places. You're going to need to redo it later or some such thing. Once you have a plan, then it is possible maybe to go in and start to get some planting done, depending on the type of property you have. Now, for most of us, if you're buying a big patch of lava, no, don't go in and start doing the planting yet, man. It's going to get so hard, and it's going to get in your way later, Prepare the site. Because, well, when I was building the shed back here, one of the local guys who watches the channel kept telling me, oh, no, you shouldn't let people know you got that lumber. They're going to come steal it. They're going to steal your lumber. They're going to steal your lumber. Well, this kind of stuff, whereas I'm aware that there are cockroaches around here and things do get stolen. On the other hand, your thoughts are your reality. And, I don't particularly like it when I have somebody else come in and basically curse me. That's what it amounts to, in my opinion. Whereas there is no problem, but somebody else comes in and points out a problem. You're going to get ripped off, Yeah, well, a lot of that stuff, it's kind of like saying, well, why bother to paint your building? It's going to peel in 7 years anyway, Don't buy new lumber because someone's going to steal it, right? So, well, it got me thinking, though, when I was looking at this property there the other day with Kevin that those folks want. And I spotted a building in there that was in partial construction, and it didn't look like they'd been working on it too long, but the wood was beginning to silver, so the framework had been up for a while. And so I kind of mentioned it to Kevin. He says, well, somebody must have taken it over because there's pallets of lumber sitting right there now. And as we went by, I looked and, oh, no lie, there was brand new pallets of HPM lumber sitting right in there. Well, guess what? The place didn't have a gate on the driveway. The place didn't have a fence. I don't know what kind of land work had been done, but obviously not enough to gate and fence the place. Now, here's a situation where, yeah, a guy who was telling me someone's going to steal my lumber, if that had been me, he would have been right, because it was just way too easy. Yeah, there was nobody around. Yeah, you back the truck in there with a couple of straw guys, start throwing that lumber on the truck, boom, they're out of there, So here we got a situation where a guy, I had some plans of obviously working on this building, but the plans were all in the wrong order. You don't start working on a building if you're not going to be around there 24/7 with a shotgun and then pile up $5,000 worth of lumber in the front yard with no gate on the driveway in Glenwood. Geez, I don't think so, folks. So here's a case where the plan hadn't been done right. They got part of it, they want a building, but they didn't think about the rest of the stuff around it in the right order. I highly recommend anybody around here is going to start hauling in valuable construction materials and putting up something that before you even do that you A, got the land work done, B, when the land work's done, that's going to allow you to go in and, say, fence the area. You're going to want it fenced anyway, even if you're not worried about cockroaches stealing your lumber. You're going to want it fenced because if you're planning to come over here and say, grow pineapples, plant avocados, get some bananas going, you're not going to do that with pigs running loose through your property. No, they just rip it all to heck. I know people here who have done just that. They have not prepared the site properly. They have no fencing, it's not gated, and so they plant all this great stuff, and then the hogs come through and completely rip it to shreds. Yeah, the earthwork first. After the earthwork, the enclosure. However big the enclosure is, you may have 3 acres, but maybe you're only working with 1 of them. That's pretty typical around here, depending on the condition of the acres. So you're going to want to enclose 1 acre, so that inside that fence, you're going to be able to, grow things without having hogs come through and destroying it. You're going to be able to work on projects and leave your lumber sitting in the driveway without worrying about somebody pulling in and stealing everything from you. It's the order. Getting everything in the right order. And it doesn't take too much if you think about this, what is the proper order. So, hey, y'all hang loose, folks. You get involved, start making a plan. You'll be changing it before it's done anyway, but I'd start off making one. Aloha.